They thought she was just another woman running a dusty roadside diner, an easy mark for intimidation, extortion, and fear, but when a ruthless gang picked the wrong target, they triggered the wrath of a warrior forged in fire, a Marine who had traded her battlefield for a frying pan yet never lost her edge. What happened next turned a quiet diner into the stage for a showdown of grit, justice, and survival. If you love gripping stories of strength, revenge, and shocking twists, make sure to subscribe now, because you don't want to miss what comes next. The sun burned low over the two-lane highway that cut across the desolate plains, casting long shadows against the faded sign that read, Maya's Roadside Diner. For most travelers, it was just a pit stop. Hot coffee, greasy bacon, maybe a slice of pie before pushing onward. To Maya Thompson, it was more than a diner. It was her sanctuary, her escape from the ghosts of war, the place where she had rebuilt herself after years in the Marine Corps had taken her to hell and back. She was a black woman alone in a rough part of the state, but solitude had never scared her. She had faced insurgents with bombs strapped to their chests, cleared villages under enemy fire, and carried wounded comrades across deserts where death stalked every footstep. Compared to that, serving truckers and weary travelers hash browns at 6 a.m. was peace. But peace is fragile, and predators circle where they smell weakness, and that night, predators came in the form of a gang that rolled into her lot with roaring engines and a hunger not for food but for dominance. Their leader, a wiry man with snake tattoos curling up his neck, strutted in first, his boots heavy on the cracked linoleum, his eyes sweeping the diner as though it already belonged to him. Behind him followed three more, one with a scar that carved down his cheek, another with greasy hair that stank of beer, and a younger one who looked eager to prove himself. They had chosen Maya's place because it was isolated, no cops for miles, no neighbors close enough to hear a cry for help. They figured she was alone, vulnerable, just another woman in a dead-end business who would bow her head when threatened. But Maya did not bow. She poured their coffee with steady hands, her dark eyes unblinking as they tried to bait her with crude jokes and veiled threats. They didn't know that beneath her apron, her stance was measured, her breathing calm, every instinct sharpened by training she had never lost. The Marine in her had simply been dormant, not dead. The gang demanded free meals, demanded a cut of her weekly earnings, demanded that she pay rent for running a diner on their territory. Maya listened, her silence mistaken for fear. But in her silence, she was already calculating, already deciding whether to let them leave with a warning or to end this before they could spread word to others. When the youngest gang member slammed his fist on the counter and shouted, "Answer him, bitch," Maya's eyes flickered to the clock above the door. She remembered Afghanistan, the moment an ambush had begun with just one shout, and she remembered how hesitation had cost lives. This time, she would not hesitate. Calmly, she said, "You boys picked the wrong diner." They laughed, roaring at her defiance, the leader slamming his cup down so hard coffee spilled across the counter. But before his laughter could die, Maya moved. Years of combat reflexes ignited. Her arm snaked out, grabbed his wrist, and twisted it until the bone cracked like dry wood. His scream filled the diner, and the others froze, not yet comprehending that the quiet woman before them had transformed into something deadly. She vaulted the counter with the ease of a soldier clearing obstacles, landing between them, her presence radiating control. The scarred man lunged, but she sidestepped, drove her elbow into his gut, and sent him sprawling into a booth. The young eager one pulled a knife, but in the next heartbeat, it was in her hand instead. His own momentum turned against him, leaving his palm sliced and bleeding. "I said," she growled, her voice like gravel, "wrong diner." What followed wasn't a fight, it was a dismantling. Maya used the cramped space of the diner like a battlefield, slamming one thug's head into the jukebox, sending another crashing through a table. But she didn't kill them. Not yet. Killing was easy. Teaching them a lesson was harder. She left them moaning, broken, stripped of their bravado, and she dragged the leader outside by his collar, throwing him against the hood of his bike. "Tell your friends," she hissed, "this place is off limits." She thought that would be the end of it. But gangs don't lick their wounds quietly. The leader, humiliated and nursing a broken wrist, returned days later, not with 3 men, but with a dozen. They came at night, surrounding the diner, headlights blazing like a wall of fire, engines rumbling like thunder. Maya watched them from the window, her hand steady as she locked the door, turned off the lights, and prepared. The Marine in her wasn't just about fists and knives. It was strategy, patience, and knowing how to use the terrain. The diner became her fortress. She cut the power from the outside breaker, plunging everything into darkness, then slipped into the shadows where she moved like a ghost. When the gang burst in, expecting an easy conquest, they found only silence, and then sudden pain. One tripped over a wire she had strung between tables, another yelped as boiling water from a rigged coffee pot scalded his arm. Maya struck from the dark, her fists precise, her movements efficient. They had numbers, but she had training, and one by one they fell into chaos. Yet the leader was cunning. He had brought not just men, but fire. As his crew stumbled inside, he doused the outer walls with gasoline, threatening to burn her sanctuary to the ground. That was his mistake. Maya burst through the diner door with the force of a storm, tackling him to the ground, wrestling the lighter from his grip. Flames licked at the edge of the diner, but she rolled him into the dirt, her knee pressing into his chest as she growled, "This ends tonight." He spat blood, laughed even in defeat, and sneered, "You can't fight all of us forever." But before Maya could answer, headlights cut through the night, this time not from the gang, but from the highway. A convoy of trucks, locals she had served for years, men and women who had eaten her food, listened to her stories, and unknowingly been fed by a Marine who had defended them before they even knew it. One by one, doors opened, and people stepped out, not soldiers, not trained fighters, but a community unwilling to let their diner, their Maya, be destroyed. Armed with tire irons, shotguns, and sheer resolve, they formed a wall behind her. The gang looked around, realizing too late that they were not just facing one Marine but an entire town emboldened by her courage. The leader tried to rally his men, but the fight drained from them. They retreated, dragging their wounded, their engines fading into the night. Maya stood tall, her chest heaving, her diner scarred but still standing. For a moment, the battlefield in her heart quieted. She looked at her neighbors, their eyes filled with awe and gratitude, and realized that though she had left the Marines, the fight had never left her. She was still a protector, still a warrior, and now, she wasn't alone. But even as the town celebrated, Maya's instincts whispered that the battle wasn't over. The gang would regroup, perhaps return with more dangerous allies. And somewhere deep inside, a part of her almost welcomed it. Because she was ready, she had always been ready.